Hello and welcome to this episode of the Humans of Horses podcast. My name is Elle and I'm the human of three wonderful horses, Fion, Zaconia and Morgan. With me today is Alana Somerset. Would you like to introduce yourself, Alana?
Yeah, so I'm a student of many things currently. I'm a student of vet physiotherapy, so I'm in my third year of that. I'm currently in my dissertation preparation, and alongside that, I'm also doing a canine hydrotherapy course. And I'm a certified algotherapist, kinesiology taping practitioner, and I love continually learning about things, and the nuances of everything, and in between horses, ethology, how they are in their environment, and also the biomechanics and anatomy side of that as well.
Wow, that's a lot of scientific words where I'm like, I think what caught my attention was, was it ethology?
Ethology.
Ethology. Do you want to explain that?
Mhm. So that's sort of the study of behavior and the characteristics of horses, sort of in their free living environment, and then also versus domesticated settings. So I have I'm really quite passionate about learning the differences between the two and how I can incorporate species-specific behaviors into my work of vet physio and seeing what's normal, like quote unquote normal horse behavior, and what is different about that in domestication and how I can perfect, quote unquote perfect, horse anatomy biomechanics to the best it can be given the circumstances that domestication offers. So that's sort of where I'm at with my work.
That's quite interesting. So, how can you pinpoint what is sort of quote unquote normal when you're looking at wild versus domestic? And then,
So,
yeah.
yeah, that's a really good question. So when I'm looking at free living horses, I'm observing the sort of range of motion, what their active range of motion is. So that is the entity of how they choose to move their body and what that positioning is like without the influence of a human. So I'm looking at how they are carrying themselves, how do they choose to forage, how do they choose to move across their given environment. And then versus domesticated horses, which might be a little bit more limited in where they are able to go. So the stable versus a small turnout. So I'm looking at how they basically engage in their environment and how that impacts or, creates a better biomechanical pattern. So quite often you'll see with your free living horses that they have a wide variety of movement patterns. They're able to navigate quite difficult terrains, versus your domesticated horses that might be a bit more limited in what they can do. They might have a restriction, especially due to being ridden. They've got a lot more, alterations in their movements that you might not see in the free living horses, atrophy along the back. You might see hyperextension in the fetlocks. You might see repetitive strain injuries that you might not see, so different pathologies. So that's something that I'm really interested in and learning more about, because until we know what the horse should be, given no interaction with humans, then we can sort of picture what we are looking for a domesticated horse.
So, if you were to approach a horse, how would you then? So, can you give an example of maybe a case study and then how you would then help that horse improve?
Yeah, of course. So, for example, a lot of the time in clinical practice, it will either be vet referrals or it'll be a maintenance case where people just want to improve the general lifestyle of their animal. So, if we are talking about a complex case, that will usually be, like I said, a vet referral will come and say that this animal needs this, this, this. It could be a referral for hydro, it could be a referral for vet physio. It usually begins with like a communication section. So you ask a bit about the animal, the clinical history, any diagnoses, medications, anything that they're currently on, or exercise routines. And then from that, you'll then sort of do your visual, your palpation, your mechanical movements, your range of motion tests as well to see the movement patterns, any tissue restrictions. And then you'll sort of do your spinal prom, which is then again assessing the movement to the left, to the right, up and down, to see all of those planes. And then from then on, you'll sort of get a holistic picture of everything that you sort of want to put into a problem list. and you'll obviously prioritize pain throughout that. So quite a lot of animals I see might have trigger points that are then shortening the tissue fibers that then restricts the range of motion. So that's the most common thing that I see. Most commonly in horses, you see an overdeveloped brachycephalic, you'll see
Mm.
atrophy of the longissimus, you'll see hypertonic, so that's increased tone of the hamstrings. And all of these things impact the gait overall and can have secondary pattern compensations. So I tend to work from the primary cause and then I target my secondary patterns.
So what would be an example of a primary versus a secondary?
So primary would be the original causation. So let's say you've got a horse that has hock arthritis. So that would be your sort of general consensus of the original problem. And then your secondary might be reduced tarsal flexion. You might have trigger points along the back. You might have a overdeveloped forelimb due to loading more and reduce the weight bearing behind. So you might have quite a lot of compensations there, and it's about alleviating or trying your best to alleviate the primary, and then you can strengthen and work on the surrounding tissues as well. So you're getting that overall gradual exercise prescription there. So we might offer exercises that might increase that. So, pole work for your hock arthritis. You might offer some owner targeted exercises they can do. So some weight shifts, some flexion, extension, some range of motion to get that synovial fluid movement and things like that.
That's really interesting. I've never really spoken to someone, um, yeah, studying this. It's kind of really cool. I'm like, wow, it's a lot to take in. But what
Mhm.
what I like to ask is when I'm sort of talking to someone who's specialised as you are, doing with your studying, how did you get to where you are?
Oh, this is such a good question. So it started a lot of the accumulation of things. I started horse riding in childhood, and I am quite attuned to emotions. I picked up quite a few horse behaviors that I saw labeled as bad behaviors. I saw horses predominantly reacting to saddles, and I predominantly saw horses acting out of frustration, discomfort, and then often being punished for that. And I just didn't think things were right. Especially in when I was in my college, I noticed this especially a lot of horses were uncomfortable, um, and the turnout wasn't great in a lot of situations. And I just saw a lot of behaviors that weren't species specific enough, like they weren't able to express natural behaviors. Um, so this key situation led me to what can I do to help domesticated horses with their environment, with their lifestyle, and with progressing through what we ask of them. And it led me to the physio side of it because I get to work alongside a wide variety of horses, lifestyles, ages, exercise routines. And I get to work alongside the owners, and I don't just see them once, I see them over a period of time. So that really inspired me that I get to have a close connection with the horse and the guardian of the horse, so that I'm able to promote the best lifestyle I can with what I am trained in. And that's why I'm so proactive with my learning. I do so many courses because I really want to offer the best, given the circumstance that a lot of horses are domesticated and people are trying to do the best they can, most likely with the resources that they have. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's just really, really interesting. Um, I think a question that came up as you were talking is because one thing that I sort of find a bit overwhelming is if I ever do step into a professional context with horses and clients, is
Mhm.
like dealing with people who are more traditionally mindset.
Yeah, that
You
is
know, the
very
sort
true.
of types of like, well, we just put a horse in a stable and blah 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 blah. So, have you encountered any of that yet? And or how do you think you're gonna handle it in the future?
So, yeah, this is where working with free living horses is really favourable for this because I have the experience and the sightings of seeing what the difference is between the horses that are given the choice to express behaviors versus those that are stabled. My biggest my biggest positives for this are research and explaining in sort of like a sympathetic tone. You know, you understand that the land is not as prosperous over here. You know, there's a lot of limitations to UK turnout. There's limited grazing opportunities, but I think it's about opening that horizon and examining the possibilities. Even if you are confined to a stable, there are ways you can encourage biomechanics, and you can encourage different positions, different expressions of behavior, and different movement patterns. For example, if your horse has, let's say, neck tension, you can provide a wide variety of forage opportunities, some on the ground, some in a raised net, different positions that you're incorporating to get that mental stimulation, that movement. You can, there's so many opportunities for this, and you can also do herbs in water buckets. You can basically just, with what you have, try to make it as interesting, as mentally stimulating, and as what you can. And I think the more research that is done and the more sympathetic you are to people's individual situations, the more likely you're to get a response that is appropriate for the horse. So that's sort of
No.
where I'm at. I haven't yet encountered many horses that are not on turnout at all. But I have seen some that are an extremely limited turnout, and I think it is very, very difficult in the question of, is this humane, is this ethical? Um, yeah, it's extremely hard, like you say, the traditional backgrounds. But all you can do is just suggest, and you need to keep strong in that people might not always change their adaptations, but just working with what you've got, I think, is just still enough motivation for me to try and do best in my sessions with the horses that I have.
I think you articulated that response very well. um, no, very nicely put. What sort of came up for me? I think I was going to ask. So, if I said, okay, Alana, here's a field
hmm
and some horses, what would you do with that field to help them achieve the best sort of physical state of their bodies?
I love this question so much, and it really would be a picture of art, I think. I think the biggest thing is they love to forage. So making that opportunity is beneficial for them, and the land you have as well is extremely important as well. The quality of the soil, the opportunity to go up and down hills, the opportunity to browse, like I said, from different heights, the opportunity to play with other, like even other animals, like even if you have a companion animal in the field, that encourages movement patterns that most likely that you won't see on your own. You'll see them sort of do some barking, do some excitable playing, and that is all getting different flexibility patterns. That is very good for encouraging different movements that you wouldn't see if they're just sort of on their own, pacing the fence line. So I think having that friend, that companion, the herd dynamics, that alone encourages, I think, a lot of patterns that we just don't see, because a lot of horses are kept in very small herds where they don't know each other that well. They don't get to choose their friends in domestication, really. We sort of pick them for them. So I think even just allowing your horses to meet different horses and picking the best solution for them will get the most favorable outcomes. And you can even use passive physio, so utilizing the environment, like different textures of floor. So maybe some long grass. You can use different terrains, so soils. You could get wood bark, different resources as well. So putting feed underneath leaves, for example, will get them to paw the ground. You're then getting that active flexion, the little bit of extension there. So utilizing the active range of motion will then be very beneficial to then increase the passive when you're going in for your stretches during a physio session. So I think it's important, mostly with what they're doing for the rest of the time they're not in a physio session, because it's all good and well, we're there for the hour, we fix things, we treat things, but what are they up to those other 24, 23 hours of the day? I think
Yeah,
is very important.
that's a really good point because we really only see our horses for like maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 hours max. I don't know. Well, at the moment, I spend all day with my horses because I don't get to see them very often. I see them every 2 weeks.
I
But
love that though, that you spend time with them as much as you can.
before I maybe there max 4 hours, and I always say, and it comes from Warwickshire, but work with the horse that you have today, because
Exactly.
we don't know what happened in those 20 hours we weren't there. And we don't know what stresses they've encountered. Like maybe there were loud noises, maybe it was windy, maybe it was really heavy rain. We don't know. So it's like when we show up, it's like, okay, what's going on for our horse today? And it's funny how you brought that in as well with the what they're doing the rest of their time, and if we can structure their habitat to nurture and encourage those movements and that sort of
Mhm.
muscle proprioception and muscle building, then yeah, that helps, doesn't it? Because then that
It
makes
does, it really
what we
does,
then
yeah.
ask them easier. I don't know, because there's a couple of things that came up as you talked.
Oh.
The first thing I wanted to mention, there was a book that I read called Healthy Land, Healthy Pasture and Healthy Horses. And in there, it mentions about chickens and the benefit of chickens for horses. And when you mentioned about having other animals with your horses, reminds me of that, because when I bought Fion, he I don't think he'd ever seen chickens before, and where I put him had chickens. And I saw him resource guard chickens from his hay. And I sort of, because they're so tiny versus him, he's sort of then down there with his weight forward, his ears back, and kind of going like, rah, towards these chickens. And I thought, yeah, that made me think, yeah, of course, that's different than what he would do if he was resource guarding with another horse. Um,
Yeah, that is so interesting.
yeah, so I thought of that as well when you were talking. And then another thing, what else was there? It was like, um, uh, so they lived in the Netherlands, so it's flat. And when they moved here, their field now is on a hill. Um,
Mhm.
so they've actually had to learn to go up and down hills, which is quite funny.
Oh.
And they've each had a slightly different approach to this. So Morgan just went charging down the hill and then was like, splat almost. And Zir, she's older, so she was kind of more like, I'm just going to cautiously walk down this hill and I'm not going to rush. And Fion just was a bit in between. But Zir's really interesting because their body worker in the Netherlands, I've sent her videos of them, and she said Zir's pelvis is like really loose now.
Mhm.
And when she first moved to the UK, she actually stumbled in the trot because she wasn't used to she didn't have that body awareness and that sort of I guess you'd know more about it than me, but the sort of neurofiring
Mhm.
um and the muscle patterns and the muscle memory to handle uneven terrain. So she actually fell a couple of times and slipped, but over the time she's been there and she's been on the track, so she's moving around the track on the different varied terrains, she now actually has a loose pelvis for the first time since I've owned her.
Oh, that is so interesting, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think
I
we
think
can
this
do a
links in
lot.
really nicely as well to I recently came back from Sable Island, which is, I don't know if you know, but these are basically
Mm,
horses that were brought over to merchants on an island off the coast of Canada. These horses are living alongside sea lions, great white sharks. It
wow.
is a very, very extravagant situation for a horse to be in, and it was truly amazing to see horses thrive on a sand-based environment with very rough foliage. Um, they obviously didn't have any human intervention. If they are lame, they are not allowed to be put down. There's nothing there. And they're completely unhandled, besides the previous domestication of 1700. So they've had quite a few generations where they've not been impacted at all. But it was very, very interesting to see that the lame horse was completely by himself. He was quite, I want to say, uncomfortable. It was very obvious he was uncomfortable But needless to say, there was foliage around him that he wasn't off food. But he decided to go up onto the sand dunes, which is quite a lot of muscular effort for him to do that. It just shows how resilient horses are, and it shows how determined they are to get to the best food. And I just think this demonstrates quite nicely how a lot of horses in domestication are boxed up, they're not allowed to move, they're restricted. When in this given scenario, the horse was quite lame. It looked like he had a fractured carpal.
Oh,
He was very
wow.
hyperextended and he was completely non-weight bearing on his left fore. But he's still determined to walk up the sand dunes and graze. And a lot of the horses on this island, there's no predation there. So he is very determined to eat because if not, then he'll die of starvation because there's no predators there. So it just shows how intellectual they are and how intelligent they are to think ahead. And a lot of the horses there would utilize the water. They would eat off the waterline. There's algae on there, so they eat
Wow.
seaweed properties. Their diet is completely different, and I'm just thinking about that from a domesticated perspective, how limited they are in their choices and how a lot of horses are, they're picked food for them. They're not given the selection and then offered to pick. It's just raising more, the horses that we have, even just offering them more choices is a step in the right direction, and offering them to have more control of their boundaries as well, I think makes a really happy horse. If you're coming in after a day's work and you're rushing and you're not really thinking about the horse, that's another living being. You're just like, here, let's put a saddle on you, let's go for a ride, without really giving them any opinions or anything. They're gonna become shut down. They're gonna just dissociate. And I see a lot of horses that are deemed as, oh, they're really chill, when actually this is shut down behavior. This is not normal. When I see a horse that's overly compliant, I just get a bit like, this is just quite sad. Because obviously the horses that I've seen in free living, they're extremely curious. They have such a wide, bright eye. They haven't got the triangular sadness eye. So
Mm.
again, it's just comparing different behaviors of what you have. I'm looking to go to Alberta in the next few years, which is the complete opposite of this. It's in the middle of Canada, in a wooded terrain, in a foresty terrain, but they have a lot of predation there. So bears, they have wolves. So it'd be interesting to see the difference in contrast in culture of herds, but also how they respond within their environment, because the horses here, I didn't see any really lift their heads up and go, "Oh, what's that?" It was very placid, very calm environment for them.
So how long were you there for then?
So we were only there for one day because the laws of the island are you're not allowed to stay overnight. And
Oh.
due to financing, I did enjoy the one night. It was fantastic. I think that was all I really needed to see from a learning perspective. Obviously, to stay there more days would have been absolutely beautiful, but with uni and everything, I wouldn't have been able to stay that long. Um, but yeah, that was such an amazing trip, and I definitely recommend people to see more of the free living of horses, because they'll really start
Mm.
to see a difference of behaviors and how horses are truly when it is beautiful. It's like what we all pictured when we were kids, the free, wild, long
Yeah.
manes. They're feisty, they're not compliant, they live on their own terms, and they being around you is enough presence for them, and they love to just be in your presence and just watch, and you don't need anything from them. And I think not having expectations will make us a lot happier as well. I think
Mm.
people live a lot in expectations. They expect things and they become let down when these aren't met. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really beautiful, what you just said. I love that. Um, no, I've had a quick Google of them. They're just fantastic, aren't they?
It is, and it's surreal. They are what I pictured when I was a kid, and
Yeah.
seeing that was, yeah, something else.
Also, I've never heard of Sable Island until you mentioned it, and it's really in the middle of nowhere, and it's just a
Yep,
strip, isn't it? It's
it
incredible.
is. Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
complete and utter secret. It's a secrecy, and they were brought to the 1700s by merchants to do livestock, and they ended up having to leave because of the terrains, and the weather there was quite severe. It is also known for shipwrecks, so around 250 to 300 ships had actually wrecked on the island. due to it's very, very hard to see. It's a very flat piece of land, so I'm assuming that with severe fog you wouldn't have been able to have seen it.
No.
So
How
it
did you
caused
get
a lot of.
there?
So we got there by a fixed wing airplane. So that took us from Halifax to Sable Island at dawn, and then we left in the evening after sunset. And it
Wow.
was beautiful seeing all the seal heads bob as soon as we landed. We saw all the little seals um, at the entrance. That was really cute.
What was the Okay, I have like a million questions now. My first question is, because I'm now looking at it as from the satellite, where did
Mhm.
the plane land?
So, you'll be shocked to know it landed on the actual island, and the
Oh
horses are
wow.
so habituated to this that they actually will stand near the landing site and they will greet visitors. So there is a rule that you can't touch them. You have to be within 10 horse lengths or 20 horse lengths away from them. So it truly is you can look and not touch. And I think again that's such a beauty of it, because I think as a species we are very touch, touch, touch. We like to be very hands-on, whereas horses are very inquisitive, but they aren't able to grab and, touch us like that. So I think it was really quite nice being able to observe horses without having the expectation to do anything with them. And I think that was
Yeah.
beautiful for a lot of people, just being an observer of this wonderful creature, and I thought it was amazing.
It's like the consent of touch, because we just go up to horses and touch them. We don't actually ask them, hey, you want to be touched? Like I always try
Exactly.
and offer my hand for them to sniff first
Hmm.
and then ask, like, do you want to be touched? But that's something that came over building a relationship with them. It wasn't something I inherently did to begin with. Um, because yeah,
I
we
love
just
that. That is
don't
beautiful.
ask, do we?
Nope.
No.
No, we don't. And I think it all begins with empathy and, putting ourselves in the animal's shoes. I see a lot of horses that just because they aren't lame, they should they should be fine while being ridden, and there's just so many things you can't rule out. They might have a headache, they might have tooth pain. There's
Because
just
they
so
can't
many
tell us they've got a
nuances.
headache, can they?
Exactly, yeah, they can't. And I
Yeah.
think they don't even need an excuse, or they don't need a health problem to not want to be ridden. I think them just saying no should be enough
It's
to
like
just
if
respect that.
if you said to me today, "Well, Ray, you got to go on a run today, and it's got to be 5 kilometers." I'd be like, "No."
Exactly.
Some days I just be like, "Hell no, I'm not doing that." I
Exactly.
got a headache. Why would I want to do that?
Or you're just not in the mood to, you just want some
Yeah,
downtime, and I think that
exactly.
is and that's it. I don't even think you need a reason, just you not wanting to do that
Is
is
enough.
just
Yeah.
not want yeah,
Because
exactly.
sometimes we might just want to sit on the couch all day, and that's totally okay.
Yeah,
Just as
exactly.
much as the horse might want to snooze all day.
Mhm.
Um,
That is so true.
I'm trying to think of the other question that came up earlier, but my brain's kind of like, ooh,
Overwhelmed and
so many
stable.
exciting things. That was it. What did you observe of their relationship with the sea lions?
Oh, this is such a good question. They actually didn't go near them once while I was on the island, but they do have a very interesting routine that our tour guide literally knew where they were going to be when. So their routine was to
Ah,
be on the actual island with, like, because obviously there's a sand-based area with the waterline meeting the actual Atlantic, and then on the island you have multiple little lakes in between. So they would
mm,
all be on the main island throughout the day, and they would sort of transverse to the waterline with the Atlantic by evening. So they would all be walking along the sand just for, I think, a bit of just movement. Um, there was a war tank. I don't know if that was a war tank, but it had the conventional wheels that would be driven, and they would use that as sort of like a scratching post. Obviously, there was ship remains there as they would also use for scratching as well. So they had a very unique like day pattern. But what I did notice is that a lot of them weren't in herds. A lot of them were in small, small groups, and some
mm,
individuals. And my theory is that they wouldn't need the security from a herd in this environment because there's no predation. They can just and they can see everything, so it's quite flat.
mm.
So they have the security of being able to see everything and not having that innate fear of, oh, something's going to get me out here. Um, completely different environment, and it's insane to me how this even occurred. It is amazing.
Question just came up. I wonder, well, more of a rhetorical question, but I wonder how much of domesticated horses have that, oh, something's going to get me, that comes from the way we as humans have treated them for like hundreds of
Yeah.
years.
That's a really good point as well, because these horses were handled over 300 years ago, and they don't have a single fear of any human. There was no sort of there was no guarding behaviors of the herd either when we were sort of
Mm.
nearby but not close. There was no negative associations with humans, so that I found that really interesting as well.
Because in domestic horses, you often see it where they're like, oh, who's that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they want to
The
look. They're
fear.
like, who's that? Because by comparison, so I live on next to the Mendips, and on the Mendips is a wild herd of Exmoors, well, quote unquote wild. Um, they've been there for a long time, so they're very accustomed to humans. But again, it's funny you mentioned the Sable Island horses and how they kind of don't really have a predator, so they're
Uh-huh.
in these smaller groups and don't need that feeling of a larger herd. And the Exmoors, when I've seen them, there's like about 15 of them, but they're kind of spread over an area. So there'll be like maybe 8 in a group. Then there might be one individual, 2 individuals by themselves. Then there's like maybe a pair. So they're quite spread out. And I
I
think
love
that's
that.
that
Yeah.
same feeling of like, because again, when I approached them, they kind of just, most of them didn't care. And a couple of them, sort of the ones that I was closest to, sort of turned their heads and looked at me. But they were still remained, I'd say they remained in the parasympathetic nervous system. So they were kind of like
Mhm.
acknowledging or showing awareness I was there, but they weren't coming at that from a place of fear or mistrust.
That is so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's the
So
same,
interesting.
whereas domestic horses have a reason to mistrust humans.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think that's the case, and it's quite sad, isn't it, when you think about it?
Yeah, cheery topic. No.
I know, I know.
Oh, no, that's amazing. Okay, rather random question. Um, were you scared flying there?
No, I don't actually have a fear of flying as such. I have a fear of obviously when you're high in the sky it is completely different to being on land, and I think the fear of being so high does get to me sometimes, but then I realize where I'm going, I'm like, oh, this is fine.
Yeah, because it's such a tiny little plane. I also had a quick
No, it is.
Google
It was
because
tiny.
the
And we
pilot
had
in
to
me is
wear
like, "Oh, what plane were you in?"
yeah, we had to wear like little headsets as well because the engine was right next
Yeah.
to us, obviously. So we had to wear headphones because it was really quite loud without that. But yeah, it was really interesting. It was a really small plane, so we got to actually see the pilot and the controls, and he was talking about
Mm.
everything. And someone got to sit at the front with him.
Oh
And he was
wow.
talking about all the controls and what they do, and it was quite surprising. They had an autopilot on this plane, so it was most pilots tend to put their planes in autopilot for majority of the flight. So that was basically flying itself for most of it, which is quite scary but quite interesting.
Yeah, because I describe my job as like you're a systems manager and a systems manipulator. So he would have had all these old like and they're called analog dials,
Mhm.
whereas in like airlines it's digital. This is not horsey now, but who cares? So yeah, like I sort of will take off in about, I don't know, maybe 1,000 feet or so. I put the autopilot in, and then I might disconnect it at 1,000 feet or so for landing. Um,
Wait, you're a pilot?
yeah, fun fact.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
cool. I did not
yeah,
know that.
yeah. So that's why I sort of am curious about the plane side of your trip as well as the horsey side of your
Oh,
trip.
that is really cool. I did not know that. Fun fact.
Fun random fact, folks. But yeah,
That's such a
so
talented job.
yeah, it's cool. But anyway, so that was my little tangents there. So I think maybe I should go because it combines horses and planes. There you go.
Yeah, that would be fascinating for you to see that.
How did the opportunity to go there come up?
So I followed a photographer called Sandy Sharkey for quite some time. she's a wild horse enthusiast, so she travels all around the world, seeing different herds and different horses. And she did a multitude of trips, mostly in Canada. And I did see the Sable Island one, and what really struck me was the location of the horses, and I was like, I have to research this. This is a beach with wild horses. And I googled Sable Island, and the whole history of it, I think, really captivated me. It was a very unusual place for horses to be. Um, and I just fell in love with how they looked, honestly. They are really pretty. Um, but I also was really curious about how they would move in their environment, what they would eat, what they would do. Um, and it was interesting as well. I didn't tell you this, but there's no trees on the island.
Mm,
So there is mostly just water that they can go in to cool down. And also the colours of the horses were a range of bays with some palominos and duns. There was not a single grey horse as well. And I thought that was
interesting.
quite interesting as well, like the
Why do
genetics
you
of
think
this.
that is?
I don't know because in theory you would want the lighter colour horses to reflect the light, not absorb the light, because obviously you're on an island, the sunlight's going to be beaming on you. I think honestly it was just a small selection of horses at the start, and obviously the genes carried on that mutation of the bays with a few different colours. But there is enough horses on the island to not have a high degree of inbreeding. Um, there are around 500 horses on the island, and we got told that you only need around 100 to 200 to prevent a high degree of inbreeding. So
Mm.
that was really quite interesting as well.
Is their population controlled or in any way, or is it just left to
Nope,
be as is?
it's completely left. Yeah,
That's really
completely
interesting
left.
as well. Because when
So I did, yeah, sorry to cut you
sorry,
off.
no, you
I
go, you
saw I saw so many carcasses as well. I forgot to mention this.
go. Mm.
So they leave absolutely everything untouched on the island. So there was a lot of horse carcasses, so I got to see the quality of the bone, the teeth, the feet. Um, I don't know how long they were there. I know that nothing would have been done to them, but they had extremely good bone. There was no ossification, no sort of inflammation or no angry edges of the joint. So that was really quite interesting as well. They were quite healthy. So it'd be very interesting to see what the majority of them died of, whether it was old age or a broken limb or something like that.
Mm. Wow, that's just amazing. I what just came up for me was so the breeder of Morgan. Uh, I went to go visit her earlier this year, and she used to teach kids like sort of groundwork sort of things, but ethical from an ethical perspective. And she has a horse's skull, and you can basically she uses it to teach the kids because you can run your fingers where the bit was,
Mhm.
and you can feel there's like jarred bone from where that
Mhm.
bit has worn and worn and worn on the bone. And that really, really, like, I mean, I've been anti bits most of my life, but um, that really hit me. I was like,
Wow.
that's insane, you know?
That is really insane, isn't it? Yeah. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Because she also said, you know, sort of feel how strong the skull is, and even on the nose, it was quite strong. And so she's
Wow.
like, so bear in mind how strong that nose is versus the damage that that bit has done.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was just like, whoa, don't like that.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I mean, the conformation of these horses, they had very, very strong backs, very good muscle overall. They were around, I want to say 13 to 14 hands. So they weren't overly huge, but it was obviously in summer, so quite a few of them had quite good fat content as well. But in winter, the winters can be quite harsh there. We're looking at frozen waters, frozen
Mm,
forage. They have to dig, and they have to use quite a lot of skill to get food. Um, I'm guessing that's why a lot of them don't make it as well,
yeah.
because of the lack of forage. It really does
I was gonna
deteriorate.
say, do they because you've probably read quite a lot into them, do they
Mhm.
put on a lot of weight then over the summer, and then like how does it work? Because obviously in the
From my
domestic world, it's like,
observations, yes.
yeah,
From yes, I
because
thought,
in the
yeah,
sorry, in
that's
the
okay.
domestic world, we um sort of like, oh yeah, we can't, horses can't go without food, or they colic or get ulcers or whatever. And I wonder what the difference is for them, well, like how long they can go without eating.
That was a very good question. I don't even think they have the research of this yet, but I did see quite a few stallions that I thought were pregnant mares. That's how much fat they had. Um, I yeah, it was quite funny. But I think they are typical. They overstock in the summer to then
Mm.
be protected over winter. And it is very interesting. I would love to see what they're like over winter. I know it gets quite drastic over there with the changes and everything. But, from my
Because you've almost
observations,
got
they
the
do
two
put a lot of weight.
extremes, don't you?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
And they don't get any help with the feeding, so they won't have anyone come down and drop a bale of hay or anything, because
No.
even if they were kind enough to do that, they probably wouldn't be able to handle that because it's such a change to the natural
And you
feeding
end up
regime
with probably the
anyways.
leptin spikes, and then they
Mhm.
gorge. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Because again, the Exmoors on the Mendips, because I noticed that as well. I was like, oh, they're quite sort of chubby chubs, but not extortionately so. Like,
Mhm.
because again, it's like society and labels and all this stuff. We often like,
Yeah.
oh, that horse is fat. And I'm like, but is it though? If
I
it's
think
getting enough
yeah.
movement, is it just its body type? Like Morgan, she's about 13, 14 hands, because I think a lot of the sort of northern hemisphere native breeds are that sort of size and are a bit chunky. And she's
Mhm.
half cob, half conic. So she's just
Oh,
like
wow.
a little butch machine. But you sort of look at,
I love
sometimes I'm
that.
like, is she fat? But then I'm like, but I sort of feel her body and I'm like, no, she's just quite wide. Like she has really hench, flat back. And like
Mhm.
I sort of prod her and I'm like, she's not that fat really. But I mean, if she stood
Yeah,
around all day, she would get fat, but she
yeah, that's
doesn't.
a good
So
point actually, whether what would be muscular or not, because they are quite muscular as a breed because they have to be to navigate the sand, because obviously they have to push in
yeah,
and out the sand. It
sand's
requires
heavy.
quite a lot of muscular effort. And also another good thing is that obviously we know that bone going into hard ground is obviously worse than bone going into soft ground. So I think this is
Mm,
actually favorable that if they did break a bone, they would be able to use the softness of the ground, so that's quite good, I guess. Because I'm
that's
guessing that
quite
would
a
be
good
the most
point.
common injury for them to get.
So I wonder, my brain's now like doing links. I wonder if you came across, say, a client's horse that had maybe a similar kind of fracture. Maybe you could say, well, how about you make them a little sandbox, if you can,
Mhm.
or like,
Yeah.
yeah, basically make their surface soft. And I wonder if that will then rehab them.
And then part of me's like, how do these horses not get sand colic? Because they're literally eating off of
True.
sand. So that's now like I have all these questions now of how do their guts just adapt, and do
To
they
the
now how do they
higher sand
digest sand?
content.
Because they've been here for 300 years. I wonder if they've got a different gut digestibility
Probably.
because of what they're eating. That would be very interesting to see how they handle the sand content.
Yeah. Because
So many
I
questions.
think, well, yeah, now I'm coming up with loads. I think I had no idea this discussion would go here. It's so fun. Um, I think, what was I going to say about um brain? I've been
Brain's
up
not
since,
brainy.
what time did I wake up? I woke up at 4:30 for work, so it's been a long day.
You are tired.
Yeah, I'm okay though. What was I going to say about horses? Yeah, that was it. Rewilding. So, and it's the same with humans, because I think there's so much that the modern world and the way we've evolved as a society and a species from when we were wild cave people. Um,
Mhm.
and it's the same with when we've domesticated animals. We've taken
Yeah.
away all that natural homeostasis slash deeper
Yes.
intuitive living.
Exactly, yeah,
Um,
that's true.
um, if you think about, like with the sand, you're mentioning about sand. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
they have probably adapted to that because that's their environment.
Yes, for sure.
And we've maybe, like, if we take, say, our own horse and go like way back in their lineage, it's like, well, maybe many generations ago, they were living wild and able to handle the sand, but because we've built the environment where we've put them in a stable on turnout, blah 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 blah, we've taken away what their body can naturally, inherently, genetically do.
Exactly. I think we modified them so much to be able to do intended work purposes. For example, thinner bones for racing, then you've got the the tall genetics for scope over jumps. I think it's very much breeding for intended purpose, not for longevity, which is what the wild horses we see. They're bred for longevity. Their long manes obviously a barrier against the sunlight. They protect
Mm.
against flies. Um, so they're bred for nature's worst nightmares, I guess, compared to our domesticated horses, which are bred for the vet's worst nightmares.
um, it's funny because my husband isn't horsey at all, but he says, "Why are horses so fragile?" And I say, "Well, because we've
Made them
stripped
like
them
that.
of their stoicism almost.
Exactly, and
You
their
know, we've bred them
fundamental
that way."
resilience.
Yeah, yeah, that wild resilience
And I
that the
think
sable
once you take
horses
away their
have.
ability to say no, then they become even weaker because
Yeah.
they have no autonomy then. So if we are training incorrectly, they have no say in, oh, this is actually not good for me because I can feel that. Because I'm pretty sure they know when the biomechanics that we're asking is not good for them. They have a lot of agonistic behaviors. So they even know themselves what movement patterns they should do. And we just don't allow them to do that a lot of the time and they suffer for it. So they just sort of just learn, oh, well, I've got no choice in this.
Yeah,
Um,
and also
whereas
what their
mm,
limitation is.
exactly. And I love that about the free living horses, and I really hope that my connection between the two and how I interlink those becomes quite good for my physio and showing owners this is what horses could be like, and there's no reason why we can't do that with motivation and empathy with what we have, trying to make the best for our horse.
Mm. Question that's come up now is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So it's
Ooh.
2025 now.
I would hope to have done a lot more wild horse observations and obviously become qualified in vet physio with clients that I hope I can help build their horses up to what they see in the future and to help longevity of domesticated horses, help them thrive and help them to see that they do matter and that domestication doesn't always have to be the end of their career or their
Mm.
life essentially. I just want to help because I know it can be tough being a horse owner as well. So I really hope I can open the doors and shine the light through to both horses and the owners that it can be a process of learning. It can be a fun journey together. It doesn't have to be, oh, I've got to go do my horse after work. There's no wrong answers in this. There's only learning and growth. I think that's
Mm.
what I would like to put out there.
That's really beautiful. Is there anything else coming up for you right now?
No, I think that's it. I've really loved speaking to you. That's been really fun.
Cool. So what I tend to do is, well, actually, I haven't asked you, is there any specific horse that you'd like to talk about?
Ooh, at the moment, I don't think there is just one special horse. I think every horse has been sort of fundamental in teaching me things. I mean, I can talk about one of the horses I treated today actually on my CPD. So I was treating a beautiful young gelding. He is recently being backed. And we were doing some postural release, so sort of encouraging relaxation and just embodiment. And I was sort of targeting the under the side of his neck because he was quite overdeveloped there. So doing some weight shifts and doing some just compression, so holding down tension and areas that I felt needed a bit more work, and he sort of nudged my shoulder, and I sort of stepped back a little bit, and he put his head on my shoulders, and then I sort of put my hands over his atlas and axial, and he just sort of extended his neck on his own accord on my shoulders, and I thought that was so beautiful. It was a very horse-led session today, and for the first time I really saw how horses can guide your session, and how actually they know where they want it, the treatment. And I saw
Yeah,
that for, I think, the very, very first time today, and it was a real life-changing horse to have had in front of me. Such a young horse, and he had so much knowledge of his own body. So that was really nice to see.
that's really beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah. It reminded me of a previous guest, Rianne, and her horse Tino, because she's sort of equine physio. That's what she's
Mhm.
trained as, but she does energy work and lots of other things now.
Oh, wow, that's so
Um, yeah, she's very cool. But she said like Tino almost. I think she was once treating a horse that lived with Tino, if I remember the story correctly, and she said that Tino's helped her grow into who she is today, like in terms of the energy stuff and tuning into the deeper level of consciousness. And he will, I think she said he pointed to where the horse needed work.
oh, wow.
I was like, that's amazing.
That is very similar to what happened today, and it was
Yeah.
it was beautiful to see that, and how I sort of let him have a rest, and he sort of self-regulated, and then he came back for more, and I really, that was beautiful as well. I really like letting the horse lead, and to see what their boundaries are with that, and when they say that's enough. But it was very clear that he was done when he was done, and we ended on such a positive note, and I think that was really beautiful. That was the best part about the whole day.
Mm. I think I love seeing horses release when they have body work done. It's really, really cool.
Me too. It's so amazing.
It's just the
Yeah,
most satisfying thing ever.
it really is. But yeah, it
um,
was a very good day.
so I have some questions I ask people, but I
Mhm.
have one more question to ask you before we go into those, unless any more come up. Um, but it's how would you advise someone who wants to go where you're going professionally? Like, what sort of path would you advise they take?
So I sort of started with equine care and management in college. That's where I sort of had my roots, because I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go, and the physio came to our college, and I really liked seeing the horses so relaxed. I mean, the physio put even the horses that were the most unhappiest at a state of ease. And I was like, this is something that I would like to do for a job. And I did some research on that, and I never really heard of physios before that. So I did some research, and then I started applying at universities. Um, that was sort of how I got into it. It wasn't even like a pre-planned thing. It was more of just, oh, I really want to work with horses. What can I do that's not a vet, like an actual vet? Because I don't know what it was about the actual vet. I'm just not good with blood or things like that. So that kind of put me off that part. And also I didn't like the fact that you could be euthanizing horses. It's a very tough job. Um,
Yeah.
so I wanted something where I was making the most of animals that might not have long left to live, and making their last days more comfortable. That was where I wanted to head. Um,
Mm.
and I think getting to know some lovely physios out there, there's so many good physios that if people wanted to get into contact with, or even look at their stuff. I mean, Vet Physiophile was fantastic. She sort of inspired me. She's very, very open-minded, and she's got a lot of research, and she's just such a kind person. That's sort of my inspiration for the physio route. Um, so yeah, that's sort of where I started, and I'm now just loving it every more. The more you learn, the more everything
Mm.
becomes that picture, and you get to paint your own sort of picture of physio. Everyone sees things differently. That's the beauty of it. There's no wrong answer. Um, but it's about getting that horse fundamentally better in whatever way people see that that's necessary.
I think that's really beautiful and also reflective of sort of people who give sort of groundwork lessons and stuff like that. Everyone has their own sort of combination of tools and experiences that makes that person unique in what they're
Yes,
doing, I think, and what they can offer clients. Um,
exactly.
And I think the more people like you and like Rianne and other people we have in the world, the better.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet.
um, yeah, that's awesome. So I'm going to jump into the questions now, and I think
Okay.
so. Normally, I sort of target them at someone's horse and them, but in your case,
Mhm.
I feel it would be really nice to bring the Sable Island horses
Yeah.
into these
Okay.
questions. So I'll modify them for that. So, what gifts have you received from the Sable Island horses?
Oh, this is such a good question. I think the biggest gift for me is learning to be comfortable from a distance and learning to feel safe and to feel strong on your own in situations where you might not feel otherwise. I think the best thing for me was seeing how strong that lame horse was within his body. He was so prideful, he was so just very respectful of his space. He didn't want to hurt anyone. He was just going about his life. He was trying to do best of what he had, and that was quite inspiring to me. He wasn't, making a fuss. He was just completely chill, nuanced. Um, and he was just, yeah, that was really beautiful, I think, to see that it's okay to struggle and it's okay to pick yourself back up and to just try your best. I think that was one of the biggest gifts I saw, and how resilient the horses are, but being beautiful at the same time. I think that was really nice to see from them.
I love that. That's I'm gonna ask you to send me some photos now. I
I
want I
actually
want to
sent
see
you
these
one.
horses. Did you? I have to
I
go
sent you
find
some,
it.
yes.
Yeah, I will go look. Um, Next question is,
Mhm.
how do I phrase this for this scenario? What message do you feel they gifted you to then send out to humans?
That is such a good question as well. I think that they showed me what their ancestors and their specific species should be like. So they almost gifted me with the visualization and the artwork and the beauty of what a horse ideally should be, and what their demeanor should be, and how they should sort of be, how they look when they're happy and content and all their needs are met. I think the biggest message that they told me for domesticated horses is to just support them, be their voice, and to advocate for them where I can and when
Mm,
I feel comfortable enough to do so. That's the message I got from that.
that's lovely. Yeah, everything's just like, I love that. Okay, this one might make you laugh, because it makes a few people laugh.
Oh no.
If the saber horses were here right now in this conversation, what do you feel they would say about you?
Hmm. They would probably say, get to grips and stop being hard on yourself, because I do feel like I'm quite hard on myself sometimes. Like I feel like I should be more advanced, or I feel like I'm oftentimes not in the moment. Like I'll be like, oh, I've got to do this later, I've got to do this later, I've got to do that tomorrow. And they'd probably just be like, just chill, be where you are right now and embrace that. That's exactly what I think they would say.
I think that's what the Exmoors told me as well. Because we have so many the shoulds, the shoulds, the shoulds. And I came up there the other week with this whole like, I should be doing laundry and I should be doing this and I should unbox this box that's been sitting in the corridor for like 2 months since I moved house. And
Mhm.
they were just like, just forget the shoulds, girl. Like, just
And just
chill.
chill.
Look at us
Take a
chilling
chill.
here. Because what I found amazing, before I carry on with 2 questions, is watching the Exmoors. You know how like domesticated horses, you just see them eat all the time, more or less. Like
Yep.
a lot of the time, they're just there, eat, 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 eat.
Yep.
I was with the Exmoors for maybe 1.5 hours, just sitting with them, and I did not see a single one of them eat.
This is such a good point actually, because I see a lot of horses that they're like, oh, I can't feed my horse this much because they'll just get fat. And it's actually, a lot of studies have been done to show that they will self-regulate. They tend to overeat in the suspense that they're gonna have no forage left. So for example, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm
Hello?
just gonna
Did,
flag that.
did my Wi-Fi
Um,
go?
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
I think so, but what it what Riverside does that's clever, whatever I just missed, it
you.
will have recorded it on your side.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
So don't worry about that.
Okay.
So it'll be fine. I just marked it so that I know to edit this.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Let me know the question again
So
and
um I think you're mid talking, but I don't know what you're saying because I didn't hear you.
what was the question again? If we do the question again, I can probably restart what I said.
It was something about domestic horses and eating
Ah,
hay.
yes. That's it. So a lot of times what I see with the domesticated horses is they'll be fed not ad lib, they'll have like one net in the morning, one net in the evening, so they won't be on constant forage access. And a lot of the things I hear are that my horse can't have this because they'll overeat and get fat. And I think that, but from what I've read, there's been a lot of research on horses being able to self-regulate once they know that they've got that constant access. Hello, it's cut out again.
Yeah, don't worry. What I'll do is I'll just fiddle with it when I edit it and it'll be fine.
Okay.
Obviously I have no idea what you just said, but I was
You'll know
like,
when you watch it back.
it's a mystery, it's a surprise. Okay, so I'll just ask this question and be like, that's really interesting. Even though I have no idea what you just said. Right. That just feels so fake. Maybe I'll just I'll cut it, put some like interlude music in for 10 seconds, and then I'll just say it's three,
Okay.
two, one. Well, we just had a little bit of a minor technical glitch. So I couldn't actually hear what Alana just said, but I'm sure it was something very wise and very amazing, which I will get to hear when I edit this episode. Um, so, in the spirit of carrying on, the last two questions I have for you are where or what makes you feel wild?
Ooh, I love that. So I think what makes me feel like that is my the fact that I never stop with my work. So I'm always busy, always on CPD, always doing more research, always on top of things. I think that people would say I'm insane for kind of like how much I do work-wise. Um, but I think it's necessary and I definitely enjoy my work and I feel extremely motivated while I'm in this field. So that's, yeah, I think that's what people would say.
That's really cool because it's just, I mean, it's clearly your passion, and um,
Yes.
I don't know, I don't agree with the number, but I like the idea of it. That mastery comes when you've done sort of 10,000 hours, and that comes from, I
Hmm.
can't remember the initial guy, and I feel like I'm letting him down, but it got made famous by Malcolm Gladwell, but it wasn't actually his initial
Oh,
idea. A lot of people don't know that. Um,
oh, cool.
do you know what? I feel like I should just honour him. 10,000 hours. I'm going to Google 10,000 hours mastery. Original guy. I don't know. When I Google stuff on podcasts. Anders Ericsson. So that was his idea. So Malcolm Gladwell made it famous in his book Outliers, but
Oh,
the
cool.
original research was conducted by Anders Ericsson. And whilst I think we shouldn't put a number on the concept of mastery, the idea of obviously investing a lot of time, a lot of um, basically living, breathing your passion and what you care about in this world is going to then empower you, and then you will become a master of it.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's a cool way of looking at it for sure.
And I think we can all be masters of our respective levels of experience. So, like, I talk about it sometimes at work where it's like you can have a 10,000 hour captain with a 500-hour first officer. So, that's a vast difference in experience, but both of them can be masters of that of the particular situation that they're dealing with, because they deal
Yeah,
with it to a high standard.
yeah, for sure.
S-
And the
So yeah.
natural gifts as well. Some people are very naturally gifted in things without even needing any hours or like as little hours as
Mm.
possible. But I think a lot of dedication really does pay off,
Yeah, because I think you can have the natural talent, and then by investing the time into it and the energy into it, you can
for sure.
then nurture it and become a master.
Exactly. Love that.
Last question. What music reminds you of the Sable Island horses?
Ooh, this is a very good question. Hmm. I'm gonna have to come back to you on that one. That is a very good question. Something very peaceful, calming, or maybe even a spirit song from the movie Spirit. That would probably be a very good one to pick. Something
Oh,
that's from that movie is just iconic and it screams nostalgia as well.
I think if I was to pick one, it would be Here I Am,
Yes, that would
because
be
it's
too.
like, yeah, like the
They're
Here
like
I
in the
am,
moment.
this is
Yep,
me. There's nowhere else on earth I'd rather be. That one.
that's the song. Yep, that's
Cool.
the song.
Love it. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we say bye?
I would just like to say thank you for letting me on the podcast. It's been amazing.
Oh, you're likewise. This whole Sable Island thing's amazing. Like,
You're gonna want to go now.
yeah. That would be so cool. One day, maybe. We'll see.
Yes,
Anyway,
let me know if you do go.
thank you so much for your time. And I
No
hope everyone
problem.
listening enjoyed listening to us talk.
Thank you so much again.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't actually hang up, but that's when I normally like cut it. Anyway, I'll
Oh,
stop
that's
recording now.
I can't remember a time before you walked into my life. You took the broken parts of me and made it all alright. There's an easiness to your grace that I will never know. And every day this feeling only grows. And every moment with you just bleeds into one. Your easy smile greets my eyes just like the morning sun. A reflection of my soul, one heart that beats for two. Just know my love there, I will carry you.